Why don't you just cut the crap and tell me who you are?
I have many faces. You have known me as Kali, goddess of destruction.
As the keeper of the green world. As man of miracles.
My children call me mother, but I am beyond male and female. There is no greater power than me. I am the creator of the universe and the destroyer of podcasts.
Welcome back to another episode of Spawnography. What's happening, Hellspawn? I am one of your hosts, George Marston, pronouns they, them, or she, her, and with me as always is my good old chum.
The mother of the universe.
That's right.
Pierce
Beyond
Leiden,
male and
pronouns they,
female,
them.
no greater power.
Yeah.
That's right.
Honestly, wow. We're just really in for it.
Sensational. Sensational.
Honestly, this is what I wish. I'll say it up at the top. We should have gotten some of this shit in 150.
Yeah.
150 was nowhere near as unhinged as where we've gone. I will
say this. There are a lot of moments in these two issues where I went, what? But as I was saying in the last episode, I'd rather read a comic that makes me go, what the fuck? And then I turn the page and I go, what the fuck? And I just keep wanting to turn the page, and every time it's a bigger one. And honestly, I have to say, these two issues have a pretty strong emotional crescendo at the end.
I think, some of the stuff I was complaining about previously, it doesn't fully get fixed, but
they're
in a lot of ways,
footing.
Yeah. I think that this book, it just keeps constantly getting into such weird places that it ends up having to twist itself into knots, trying to make any sense out of it. And I think that David Hine just barrels forward enough where he just goes, I'm going to get it done. I'll get us somewhere.
I think he goes, what is all the pieces? What could I just do to seal this deal? Man of miracles. He's been all these different things. How about that?
Yeah.
Totally. And it's like, sure. Okay. Why the hell not?
But besides Spawn, which we'll get into in a little bit, how's your week going?
Not too shabby. I've been, just writing up a storm at the old comic mines, and honestly, more the TV about comic mines. Who, interestingly, if you can believe it, the opinions of that employer I work for, well, my opinions don't represent theirs.
Got it.
Yeah. The ones I say on this podcast.
Oh, all right.
So, interesting.
But the ones that you write on their site,
that's at least, yeah, they're a lot. They're
co-signing that
on some level. Yeah, sure.
Okay. I was sad today because it turns out the E in Chuck E. Cheese doesn't stand for entertainment. It stands for Epstein Island.
Oh, no.
CEO of Chuck E. Cheese had to step down after being found in the Epstein files.
Of the current Chuck E. Cheese?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's insipid. Fuck that guy. If you're talking the 80s Chuck E. Cheese guy, I was going to be like, wow, that's fucked. If you told me the guy from fucking Showbiz Pizza who invented the Rockefeller explosion, if you told me that guy was on Epstein Island, I wouldn't necessarily... You know what? I'm just go ahead and stop there because that could be slanderous. I'll just say he's quite a character, and I don't have reason to believe he was ever anywhere near that place. So that's good. It's good we already got to that.
Yeah, it's apparently the Epstein files are enough to make the CEO of Chuck E. Cheese step down, but not the president. So,
it makes me feel
it's a wacky world we live in, where every day makes me feel insane.
It makes me feel like I'm suddenly a part of QAnon. Like every day there's a new thing that's like, did you see what's in the files? They fucking kicked a baby over a field goal into a swamp. or whatever the fuck. And it's like, that sounds like satanic panic shit. It sounds like the QAnon, like they're just drinking baby's blood for adrenochrome. But that's not even that far off
I mean,
from what
listen,
was going on there with his weird bioscience shit.
the reality of our reality currently is that we just keep being, and this is not new, but like we just keep being told that everything is happening whether we like it or not, and that we just have to kind of take it, and it's could not be further from the truth, but it does feel like it. I mean,
Yeah.
the Super Bowl was just rife with AI ads, and like,
It's our whole economy
oh my
is
goodness,
deeply tied to it.
gambling, AI, and like fucking UFC, or maybe specifically one of the Paul brothers fighting. I have no idea
Oh
what's
god.
going on.
Dude, did you see the one dude, I think it was Jake Paul's meltdown, where he was like, he called Bad Bunny a fake citizen. And
Oh boy.
then he was
He
like,
lives in
by,
Puerto Rico.
then he was like, by fake citizen, I didn't mean because he's Puerto Rican. I meant because he criticizes ICE. And then the next day he tweeted, bro, what happened on my Twitter last night? What the hell?
Oh my god.
And because his brother was like, I'm super glad Bad Bunny, who is Puerto Rican, got to perform. I love calling Puerto Rico my home.
Yeah, they both live there to
Yeah, they live
avoid
in
paying
Puerto Rico.
taxes?
Yes,
Yeah.
to change their tax status. Which I think that's what happened to Jake Paul. Is he was like, wait, I fucking live there. Oh,
Yeah, he probably didn't understand he doesn't know what's going on ever since he got his jaw broken,
dude.
and probably before that. I saw somebody talking about that, and they were like, I didn't think that the Paul brother that I would have to agree with would be the one that made those videos at the Japanese suicide forest,
Oh,
but I guess
brother.
it is. I guess that's the one that's on the right side of history.
God,
In
this is
2026.
what a crazy fucking time to be alive. That this is what we're
It
talking
sounds
about
like a Mad
casually.
Libs.
This sounds like a fucking episode of like literally The Simpsons or something, where we'd be like, that's far fetched. They wouldn't have that. You know what I mean? That's why this fiction that I see over and over that reflects it, either it doesn't take it far enough in its like kind of examination, or it just lives like in too far to the right on the viewpoint of like sympathetically portraying the monsters of modern history. I don't fucking know. I was talking to my therapist about this morning. Every conversation I have is starting to turn into this. So that feels
right.
great. What I was writing about that I was talking about earlier was, to change the subject completely, was Spider Noir, the new Nicolas Cage Spider-Man show, which, I mean,
it's gonna exist.
well, as I was writing about, Nicolas Cage said that his performance is 70% Humphrey Bogart and 30% Bugs Bunny. And it's also going to be streamed in black and white and color simultaneously, so you can pick. And I'm just like, if they just make this like Darkman, I'm going to fucking love it.
How long before Enemy of the Pod, David Pepos, has to reboot Darkman?
Well, supposedly they're doing a new Darkman film or something. Honestly, if he did Darkman, I would be like, why are you just doing all of my favorites? Like, I mean, God bless. I'm happy it's him in all of these cases. He's so good. He writes Speed Racer and Space Ghost and Captain Planet, all three of those great comics. Space Ghost is just month in and month out a fucking joy.
Just killing it, yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta say, you and I have worked on comic books together and never gotten super far, partly because they're hard and we have bad brains sometimes.
Yeah.
But I now being an issue, so I got all the art for the first issue of the book that I'm working on.
Hell yeah.
Lovely artist.
I saw it and it looked great. I'm really excited.
Thank
for you.
We had a 2-hour meeting today just talking about like 4 fucking panels. Shit is crazy. Like, I think that people don't understand what goes into making a comic book. Now, granted,
it's a lot, and I mean, it takes an incredible amount of executive function that I've never been able to pull together for more than a couple pages. So
for me, what I realized is I really have to chop it into the smallest of tasks to write it.
Yeah.
I was talking to David about this, and I was like, how do you write anything? And he just goes, first draft is just complete word vomit. It is just everything. It's just like the whole thing, and then I'll edit that. And I was like, that seems so stressful. My first draft was one idea, and by the time it sat in that Word document and I kept going, and like my artist kept having questions, it morphed into 18 different things in 30 days. Like in 30
Oh
days,
yeah.
I had like scrapped the original idea, changed it 40 times, spit out 4 new synopses,
I
and
was
then like
listening to a
landed.
podcast today. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, like, I landed with a beat sheet that I thought I was following, and then I read the beat sheet versus the first issue, and I was like, great, I just used the entire beat sheet for issue 1. I don't know what happens next.
I was listening to a podcast today. What Went Wrong? I've mentioned it before.
Yeah.
Fucking great movie podcast. They did an episode about Francis Ford Coppola's The Cotton Club, or Francis Coppola as he's credited on that film. And there was a point where they were talking about him and his script consultant did like something like 36 drafts in like 42 days, like 36 different scripts. They said there was a night where they did like 8 drafts in like 7 hours or something, or 12 hours rather. And it's just like,
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Literally though, fucking crazy. Like, as they said in that podcast, I don't even know how you type that fast. Like, I will say I've been
Really?
writing a thing myself for the last little bit that I'll show you later that I think is pretty cool. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
So, it's good to be creative in this time. I think that's a good thing to focus on over the fucking nonsense we were talking about at the beginning. Getting into that shit makes me feel like a conspiracy minded person has probably felt for like decades now. Except that it's just all out in the open. It's the Department of Justice and like
Yeah.
the
It's
fucking like
not even being hidden.
international. No, well now it's being exposed and it's like, oh, it's real, but like, yeah, okay, it was these guys, and like it really does make you feel
They're like,
crazy.
so, and we're like, we're gonna do something about it, and they're like, no,
Okay.
we're just letting you know.
Yeah. No, and all of that can make you feel crazy. It can make you feel just totally off your rocker. So I highly recommend doing anything you can to, first off, make your voice heard in a constructive way about how you feel about it, but also find other people to spend time with and find creative outlets. Hell, do a podcast about anything. Do your own ography. Do
Whoa. Hey, that's copywritten.
No, I just
You
mean
can't
in
do an
spirit,
ography.
No, but you can do the Hawk and Dove
I'm kidding.
cast.
You can do Hawk and Doveography.
If you want to do an ography, get in touch with us, and after a strict vetting progress, perhaps we'll bestow a franchise upon you.
Yeah, I will say that the thing for me that has been most paralyzing, well, my last band broke up a couple years ago now, and I felt very frozen artistically, especially with everything going on in the world. And I feel like I'm thawing out of it, but it's been hard to recapture some of the energy. I'm trying. I feel terrible. I had tickets for 2 friends' bands over the last couple weeks, and I just couldn't leave my house. Not even out of like a fear or anything. I just like could not get myself to the point. And I did everything I needed to do up until the point of like leaving the house, and I just like couldn't muster it. And I was so disappointed in myself. But
it's tough. I mean, especially being in my early 40s, like I don't have the energy to go out that I had in my early 30s or my early 20s, but I am in a band that we're currently working on booking shows. And so like we're trying to get back out and like network with people and like just go to shows of bands that we like.
yeah.
I hate the term networking, but like,
I mean,
just
it is what it is, though.
Go be in the scene and meet
Gotta
people
show
and
up.
make friends and experience great music.
Totally.
But it can be, especially, it's a cliche to say, but like the years between 2020 and 2020x
24.
yeah
2025. Yeah,
it just feels like lost years. Like 3 of those years feel like 1 year, and I lost a lot of my socializing. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to do that. Like I said, do a podcast, do anything. Just it doesn't
Oh, I
matter.
cherish that we get to talk to every single week, even though
It's great.
we're just talking
Like
about Spawn sometimes, you know?
even when it's like a difficult conversation about a boring comic or something, it's still good, and I'm glad we're doing it. And honestly, these issues are anything but boring.
Very
They
true.
are off the wall.
This is definitely I I said before the last couple issues, I was like, oh, I get why people were falling off. This is where the book it's not that I understand why people were falling off. The book's divisive now. If this is like not your jam, not what you are looking for out of a comic book in 2006, yeah, I'm sorry, it's just not going to work for you.
Yeah.
If you have a wizard painted on the side of your van,
Oh hell yeah.
you better love this shit because
It's
it is
crazy.
made for you.
It's
This
made for
is
me. This is my hole. It was made for me. That's, how I feel. Like I we, I was talking about it last episode. I was talking about it at the beginning of this podcast. I'd rather read something that's just fucking nuts.
yeah.
That makes me go like, "Well, what's the next page like?" And these comics deliver completely. I mean, if you remember where we left off last time, Zira the Angel had arrived at Terry and Wanda's house where their twin children were trying to kill them, revealed that Jakey is God. And let me tell you, we are not slowing down from there. I thought that was a 9. That was like a 4. Like it just this whole thing is like a freight train barreling down. And you know
Yeah.
what? We're getting into it. So Pierce, why don't you hit me with the credits for Spawn number 158?
All right. Spot number 158, Todd McFarlane Image Comics presents. Story by David Hine. Pencils by Philip Tan. Inks by Danny Miki, Alan Martinez, Ryan Wynn, and Crime Lab Studios. Lettering by Tom Warzakowski. Colors by Brian Haberlin, Andy Troy, Ian Hannon. Cover by Greg Capullo. It's a pretty cool cover. It's this like kind of digitally painted
We've seen a
vibe.
couple of those from him at
This
point.
one is so cool. It's like Spawn going through hell, like walking through
Oh yeah,
a lava
it's very
river.
William Blake in that way, like the colors.
Well, it also and also Spawn editors Brian Haberlin and Todd McFarlane. This one's dedicated to the memory of Tim Hildebrandt.
Oh, one of the Hildebrandt brothers.
And I was
Greg
gonna
and
say,
Tim, yeah.
some of the art here, or that cover at least, gives me a little bit of those vibes.
Oh gosh, if you were alive in the 90s for
Getting
comics,
those trading
you
cards.
knew the Hildebrandt
Yep.
brothers. I love the Hildebrandt brothers. Weirdly enough, somewhere I still have it. I had a fairy tale book painted by the Hildebrandt brothers
wow.
when I was a kid, well before that. So when I started seeing their comic art, I was like, whoa, there are just so many beautiful, iconic images across genres, not just superheroes and comics, but
I mean, famously the Star Wars poster.
yeah, absolutely. Just the Hildebrandt brothers, such beautiful art. And I remember being absolutely heartbroken when Tim Hildebrandt died. And
Greg just passed a couple
yeah, I
years
was going
ago.
to say, I think Greg recently passed. And so, wonderful artists. I don't know much about them as people outside of that, but I always thought that it was such a cool team that the brothers worked together, and their art to me is just always going to be iconic. Honestly, as you said, those trading cards, all the Marvel and DC trading card boom of the early 90s was how I learned so much about comics and what comics to seek out and what characters to find. And gosh, I just treasure that resource. And I guess there's a lot of stuff like that right now. A lot of what I do at work is a little like making trading cards, just like brief summaries of like who characters are and what comics you need to read and how it relates to TV and stuff like that. And I don't think my job will. I don't think I'd do my job the way I do without those things. And so, yeah, so much of the art we know and love of those characters too. Even if you never saw the cards, you've almost certainly seen some of the art. It's just become iconic.
Yeah, and they also famously did like Lord of the Rings, like a calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
back in the day.
man.
That's really gorgeous. But they also did a lot of Magic the Gathering cards.
Yes, they did. Yes, they
and
did.
and a bunch of their Lord of the Rings art got used for those cards as full art cards more recently during the Lord of the Rings set. Just really cool, really really cool stuff. It's so I love when it's like one or two people who have just like you see that original Star Wars poster, and you're like, oh, you just changed the game for posters for like
Yeah.
50 years. Like,
Yeah.
sorry, posters can't look the same anymore. This
No.
is so cool, to the point where, again, like, not to bring up the comic I'm working on, but like, we're talking about covers, and I was like, I don't know, you want to do like a Star Wars thing?
Yeah.
Like, that was the first thing I thought of. I was like, you want to do a Star Wars
It's
poster?
one of those homages that's become so common that it's almost like a visual language unto itself. It's really like an art meme at this point, if you want
Yeah.
to use those terms.
Well,
So
and
yeah,
I think the thing I love about it is that it reminds. I love when we dig into some of these dedications and things, because it reminds me that as much as like Spawn is Todd's, it is such a culmination of the work of so many different people.
absolutely.
On your recommendation, I am listening to the Josie Reisman Stan Lee book.
Oh, it's great.
It's great. It is a lot of stuff I know, but it is
It
very
gets a
well
lot.
told.
It gets deeper into stuff that
I'm
I
only
didn't
just
know.
getting to Marvel now, so not
It's
Marvel
gonna get a
Now, the
lot
publishing
deeper.
initiative.
No,
But
I know what you mean, but this
yeah,
is where you'll start getting into the actual iceberg of like creative rights and
yeah.
Stan Lee's relationship with Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and all that stuff. And
But it's also just reminding me of how everything is so collaborative. Everything is so there are very few things that are extremely single-minded, that truly some of the greatest art has come out of collaboration, and that
well,
like even things that
even
you don't think of, like the Hildebrandt brothers doing that poster for Star Wars, because when you think Star Wars, you think George Lucas.
or Drew Struzan in a lot of ways,
Absolutely. But I just I love to go down the rabbit hole. I just think it rules.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something to remember is that even auteurs don't work alone. Even
Right.
someone like Stanley Kubrick, who was intense and intensely like domineering over his stories and stuff, I don't think even he could have accomplished anything he did without the help of the actors and craftsmen and stuff.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as the very few examples of a person who stands on their own shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Speaking of standing on shoulders, there's a couple of kids we need to talk about.
When we last met, or when we last saw Katie and Jakey, obviously Jakey was floating through the air, and we'll catch up 30 seconds after that happened. And Katie is yelling at him and saying, "No fair. How come she's acting like you're the boss?" He says, "'Cause I am. It's all come back. I remember everything. I am Lord of all creation. She is my angel, Zira of the Seraphim."
Of course, naturally.
Of course, naturally.
And so we have to ask, who the hell is Katie? It's interesting because I like this moment where first Wanda or sorry, let me start that over. I like where Terry's like, Al, is one of your demon buddies messing with my son? And Jakey's like, listen up, dickwad. You're not my father. On the 6th day, I created all of you out of crusty little pieces of mud. I'm God Almighty. You hear what I'm saying? G-O-D, God. And that leads to Katie's natural progression of the question, which is, okay, big man, if you're God, then who the hell am I? And she realizes suddenly, oh, the hell am I? I must be Satan.
Hell yeah.
It's crazy.
Shout out to Philip Tan for a very cool Satan.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And also shout out to the whole creative team for taking characters based on Todd's own children in this direction.
Or at least named after them.
Exactly.
And
yes.
fucking going for it.
Yes. And she says, I'm Satan. Nations tremble at my name. So who stuck me in this body? Who decided to make me a girl? Satan, force femmed. You
Yep.
love to see it. It's a whole new world for us now, baby.
Many such cases. Look at him from
Mhm.
Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah. Yep.
Also, the devil from Cow and Chicken.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, not necessarily non-binary or femme Satan, but force femming. We were talking the other day about that Captain America arc
Yes,
from
we
like
were.
1991, where Superia and the female, like the femizons, I think, or whatever she calls them, the League of Female Villains, basically make a plan to turn all of the men in the world into women, and so they capture Steve Rogers and Paladin and they strap them into the force femming machine. And I'm just glad reading that at 8 years old
Had
had
no effect on you.
not a single lasting effect
No.
on anything about me.
No, same.
So, and I hope that nothing similar happened to any Spawn readers.
So what's so funny about the art here, I really do have to hand it to Philip Tan and the rest of the art team, is they now have to start drawing this 3-year-old child like in superhero poses.
We're in like full on like weird Chucky territory.
Totally.
Like,
He's just
if
floating
Chucky
above
was like an exorcist or something. I don't even fucking know. It's crazy. But yeah, he's like floating around like the kids, the grandpa children from Akira.
Totally.
It's wild. They both look like the evil ventriloquist dummy from Goosebumps.
Yep.
It's crazy. But the thing is, they're getting better at drawing it.
Yeah.
Philip Tan's
They are
getting
less
better at
they are
drawing
less
it.
actually terrifying, and they do look more like intentional in a way. I think the inking is more consistent. That's a big part of it. It feels like at least similar or the same inkers kind of attacked a lot of this opening scene. And obviously Spawn's like, what? He's like protecting everybody, but he's just like, I don't kneel to anyone. And,
the Katie is like, I'm Satan, I made you, you better kneel. And he's like, I'm not gonna do it. And so God, I guess, pushes Zira to take on Spawn, and she says it's too long since I faced a worthy adversary. But this
cool
splash page fucking rules.
Yeah.
Super
Colors are
good.
great.
Colors are great. Loving it. The really good job with the green energy here. Like, that can be something that they've gotten wrong sometimes, or maybe not wrong, but that hasn't been as pleasing and exciting as how this looks.
Yeah. And now we're going to get some exposition, because as they're fighting, and it doesn't seem like Spawn's in a great spot to win here, of hand says stop. A voice comes from a hand anyway. It says stop. The time is not. It's a bit of a weird panel, because
a hand is reaching out to stop Zira and Spawn from fighting.
But like the tails of those should not go to the hand.
I think it's just a weird perspective.
Yeah. Anyway, it says the time has not come for this battle. The Hellspawn is not yet prepared, and they have this blue energy around them. They're both in black and white. It's a pretty cool effect.
She says, "I am your mother."
Well, she says it was it's Man of Miracles or Mother of Miracles at this point. Who can really say?
She's like Mother Nature. She's like
Day of Miracles,
God and the devil, and like she created God and the devil, and she has been the Man of Miracles. She was also Kali, who Spawn just fought, who we saw turn back into the Man of Miracles,
and the Keeper of the Green World.
We're very much in like, okay, how can I just make all this be a thing? I know what to do.
I'll tie it all together.
Man of Miracles is all of these guys that we've been fucking with. And much like Cog at that one point was like revealed as like the manipulator, now it's going to be Man of Miracles, and that's good. And I do have some fucking absolute questions about Cog that we'll get into.
This panel, so it's the opening that we did after Man of Miracles reveals, or after, what are we calling
the Man of Miracles? We'll just call him the Man of Miracles.
All right.
Now. After the Man of Miracles reveals that he's also like all these
Cosmic
things
being.
and the like cosmic creator beyond God and the devil.
This is the coolest shit I've seen Philip Tan draw across
Yes.
any of the issues. Is this
Oh,
I'm the
yeah.
creator of the universe and the destroyer of worlds. Full
I am
splash.
beyond male and female.
Fucking
Same girl.
awesome.
Same girl. And yeah,
Fucking awesome.
this, yes, the skeleton hand of
Causing the
fucking-
Big Bang, basically.
Yes, it's crazy. This is like some fucking Jim Starlin level, like bananas cosmic weirdness.
Jim Starlin.
And
he should do some Spawn.
so
now we're going to get an explanation about the creation of the world and why Satan and God kind of exist. And basically, Man of Miracles says, I have more children than your language can number, and to each of them I give worlds to mold in whatever way they desire. So these are just two of Man of Miracles' kids. And Earth was given to God and Satan, and basically whatever they were each creating, the other would destroy. And so this was their constant battle that they're going through. And typically Man of Miracles would not interfere with their creation. In this case, like, so usually Man of Miracles would not interfere in the affairs of their children, but in this case, their children created something that was a little bit special. This was mankind. And while God had created mankind to be his lapdogs, it was Satan who made them whole by giving them the tainted gift of free will. And now
it's
humans
just
are kind of
all
caught in between.
Cosmological nonsense that really is just trying to tie stuff together. We all know what this is. The things I say, I have some questions because it explains that Mom, Man of Miracles, whatever you want to call the great cosmic being, it's revealed that it's them who put the babies in Wanda and them who took away the thrones of heaven and hell. That's new shit.
Yeah, I don't think that that's what Mammon said.
There was Mammon. Where's he in all this? We will get a glimpse of him, but he certainly doesn't seem to fit in where we thought he might have. And boy, there's a whole lot to this. That's just like, okay, I guess, sure. That would honestly make a lot more sense if Man of Miracles was also Mammon.
Okay, here's my no prize explanation to this point, because I'm sure new things will be revealed over time. I think that Man of Miracles is basically saying, I allowed this to happen.
Yeah, of course.
The way that it happened. Or pushed things in a direction for
that's why he had so many different faces. Just make Mammon another one of those, and it actually makes more sense.
No, it makes less sense because Mammon's whole thing is to take over heaven. So, like, it wouldn't. That would be. Why would Man of Miracles?
I guess
want
it
that?
would change.
It doesn't really.
I don't know.
Man of Miracles doesn't.
It doesn't
really,
actually make sense as it is.
Yeah, but basically,
that's okay.
Man of Miracles says, like, eventually, because they kept fighting, I intervened. I removed my children from their kingdoms. Heaven and hell were left to fend for themselves. While their masters slept in a forgotten corner of the universe, I learned for myself what it is to be human. This is where we find out the Man of Miracles was Jesus.
Jesus Christ, yes.
That's in the Bible. But then
it
realizes
is actually the Book of Spawn.
But then realizes that humanity is kind of fucked up, and so
Spawn 3:16.
And so, for God so loved the world,
he gave his only begotten Spawn. This is not the end of the podcast. Don't worry.
See you later, Hellspawn.
Yep.
Wow, 33 minutes, pretty good.
Nice and tidy one this time.
Mom really learns though that human beings will go to war for anything, pretty much, and they were like, Jesus sounds good.
We were just talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So, my teachings were corrupted even in their absence. The acolytes of my wayward children continued to poison the world with their destructive dogmas.
We need you now, Man of Miracles.
Boy, have I got news for you.
I know.
Yeah.
So, long story short, Man of Miracles is like, okay, well, Armageddon's going to happen because actually I made some rules that mean it has to happen, and even I can't break my own rules, as Man of Miracles explains to Spawn later. Can God make a spoon so big even he can't eat with it? Like that.
Apparently.
I guess so.
There is a bit of hand waving in Man of Miracles' explanation that is just like where Spawn continually says like, "You have absolute power. You can stop it. Why can't you stop it? Please
And
stop
he's
it."
just like,
He's like, "Can't
I
do it.
wish I
Hands are
could.
tied.
I wish
Hands are
I
tied."
could. It's kind of weird that I can't, but the opinions I express are not reflected by those of the cosmos itself. So, yeah, and Spawn's just like, nice story with all that, but it doesn't explain the twins, which is where Man of Miracle explains that she brought them back, made them human, but even as humans, they couldn't escape their arguments and their
Yeah, their true nature.
squabbling and their true nature. And Spawn's like, that's bullshit if you want to save mankind. And she says, then she, they, it, he says, then mankind must prove itself worth saving. You
Which,
Alchemins,
okay.
together with the thousands inside you, represent the potential of your species. You know, I read one where they brought up dolphins to ask them a story, maybe by Ray Bradbury or someone.
Dolphins?
Yeah.
Feels
to
like
determine the fate
Douglas
of
Adams.
all life on Earth. It wasn't Douglas Adams. It was a short story.
You know what I'm getting at, though.
Well, so long and thanks for all the fish. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's yes. No, this was a short story, probably maybe one of those Bruce Coville like anthologies, like Bruce Coville's Aliens. But anyway, in the story, aliens arrive on Earth and they're going to decide the fate of everything alive, and everybody's like clamoring to figure out who's going to be chosen, and they pick 2 dolphins to determine the fate of all life on Earth, and it leaves you hanging, hoping that we have shared Earth in a way that will.
The dolphins are like, yeah, they're all right.
Gotta say, dolphins and other cetaceans, boy, we've done them fucking dirty. Yeah, they're fucking taunting each other. Jakey calls Katie. He says, "Give Gurley back his horn so I can rip him off and shove him where the sun don't shine." And Spawn's like, "Give him a spanking and give this planet back to the human race." And she says, even with their memories restored, they behave like children. And she tells Spawn that he could become the equal of God and Satan if only he passes one more trial, which we know will be a fight with the disciple, because we get a cool
hell yeah, because that fucking rules.
Every time I see him, I'm like, that's sick. That he looks in a very positive way. This is the era very much of comics getting a lot of manga and anime style designs really for the first time. We're getting a lot of creators who had grown up on that alongside Western comics. The wave of people after, Jim Lee in particular, Will Sportacio, some of those artists.
The Disciple is like if fucking Chamber was cool. And I love Chamber.
Okay.
Chamber is cool. He likes the Cure.
But he's like a half-destroyed suit of flaming armor. It rules.
Yeah,
he looks awesome. He looks like a villain from like Full Metal Alchemist or something.
Yeah,
you know what
true.
I mean?
That's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And we're gonna check in on Hell though, where Thammuz and Mammon have seemingly just been standing in one place for a long time. I think, I complained a little bit about David Hine's pacing, and I think that a little bit of the problem does fall to Philip Tan. And what I mean by that is this is a great opportunity to just show us what they've been doing.
Right.
And instead, they're kind of
just
like...
still kind of just lurking in hell. And Thammuz is actually taunting Mammon. And he's like, you think one day all of this will be yours? You think your magics are potent enough to control this chaos? And Mammon's like, you know what, bitch? I'm sick of you. Here's the tea. And straight up is like, look, it's giving the pain of every soul you've ever tortured. And Mammon and Thammuz is like, girl, no, what? And wig snatched. He like basically just collapses in a heap. This demon.
He does Master Tomberry him.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? Final Fantasy. Means. Oh, in Final Fantasy, if you fight a Master Tonberry,
oh right, okay,
they attack you, but they attack you for damage equal to the number of creatures you've killed.
Right. That's
so if you've killed over 10,000, you'll
Yeah, he's a
probably
wild
die.
thornberry. That's exactly what he
Exactly.
is.
He's a wild thornberry.
And so who should show up just as Memon is torturing Thammuz but Katie Satan, who says, Memon, who died, have made you king. And Memon says, what in the name of hell are you? And she says, the name is Satan, and you're in big trouble.
She's got like a molten hand. It's very funny that Philip Tan has to draw these kids like superheroes and supervillains.
I know,
It
it's
makes
so
me laugh.
funny. It's such a weird visual that it's just like, wow.
Although, and we've been complimenting Philip Tan to this point, but we get back to heaven. News quickly sweeps quickly through the shining city. Zira has returned, and she says, "You look surprised, sisters. Didn't I tell you I'd find our Lord?"
And it's just this little kid. It's fucking what?
He looks like a Cabbage Patch doll, though. Like he doesn't look.
He does. It's intense.
Yeah.
His eyes are all glowing, and he says, don't be fooled by the appearance. It's a temporary thing. Zira tells me you've been letting things slide while I'm gone. And he says, now I'm back and things are going to change. Send out the heralds. It's time to summon the faithful. And he says it with this malevolence in his eyes.
Yeah.
We go to the home of Granny Blake in California.
She lives in California now.
Where they have all moved.
I forgot that they all moved. Yeah.
Yes, they all moved to California.
I forgot that they all went there together. I just assumed that since we saw Wanda and Terry again, that was back in New York, but you're right.
An angel comes to visit her, and she says, what is it? Who's there? And the voice just says, be glad, the time has come, and leaves like a brand on her forehead, almost like the heavenly vampires from before.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Wanda is just literally losing her mind. She's just fucking reeling over the fact that Spawn, as she says, her two husbands, her dead husband who loves her, Al, and her living husband, Terry, who hates her because of what has become of their children, are fighting. And he says, but she says, they're not my babies. They weren't really ours. They were hers, her crazy monster babies. She says the twins are God and Satan. And I guess she's crazy too. Now, things get a little intense here. I'm going to go ahead and give a little warning. We won't get too into it, but a warning for self-harm. Wanda takes the gun that was pointed at her by Katie and points it at herself. And as the issue ends, there is a very stark splash page of her holding it backwards and pulling her trigger with her thumbs.
Yeah, she's pointing the gun at herself. We see a flash. We see nothing else, though.
Right.
Except to be continued.
So with that, Pierce, hit me with the credits for number 159.
Spawn number 159, Atomic Front Image Comics present the exact same credits, except Jonathan Glapion is also on inks.
Nice.
And Ian Hannon is not on colors. We got a dedicated to Carlos Huante, who I forgot to look up, as I usually do with the second issue. Makes a lot of cool art.
Great.
Cool artist. He's a creature designer. Worked on Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah, I've seen his art. That's great.
Alien Dune Part 1. RoboCop
Fantastic.
Alpha Commando. Wow, this guy's cool. Oh, Real Ghostbusters, Punky Brewster, Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Great stuff.
Cool. Well, I'm sure that he crossed paths with Todd at some point, or with David Hine, because David Hine.
Any of those.
Yeah. Anyway.
So Spawn number 159 opens up 5 minutes ago. 5 minutes before the fateful scene at the end of last issue. Wanda is just losing her mind. She's just like, Wanda's
She's really reckoning with what's going on. This is a really effective recap page because it very easily catches you up on the last couple of issues.
It has that repeated panel with Wanda's face, but I actually think it works here.
I was just gonna say, I think it kind of works because it's like time has stopped.
Exactly, like the whole situation is flashing before her eyes, and it says the twins aren't real. This is their mother, the creator of the universe. Wanda has been fighting to keep her sanity for a very long time, since the man she loved came back from the grave. This is the moment she finally gave up, the exact moment when she lost her mind. And I don't have any way of knowing if it's an influence. It seems far fetched, but there are some hereditary vibes here with Toni Collette just losing her mind, trying to figure out what's wrong with her children.
Well, I think that a thing that people who don't like horror typically don't really like about it is that it seems like the characters kind of come out pretty unscathed.
Yeah.
Right? Like you get to the final girl, and the final girl's like, and everything's great until
Right.
the sequel. And then they're not really great, or she's even better, and now she's like able to handle it or whatever, right?
Right.
But it's rare that we actually see the events of the story dry, especially comic book stories where absolutely crazy shit happens all the time.
Well, it's nice to even have that bystander human point of view that acknowledges, especially in these two issues, wow, this is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Everything that's happening right now is so far beyond the scope of my reality that I think my reality is actually breaking. My mind is breaking. And like, though Philip Tan's rendering of Wanda throughout these is great. I know we talked a little bit about the inconsistencies and some of the strange expressions in the previous two issues. She carries these issues in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, there's a panel on the second page after. Again, we're kind of recapping things that have happened. Also, we're starting to realize that the whole last issue happened within about 5 minutes, which is that's the speed of these issues. Like, there's a lot going on, a lot being thrown at you.
But
that's crazy and very cool.
But in a way, it makes sense. It's just a conversation, and as we see, it's not a long one. As Terry is trying to figure out how to help, and Spawn's like, Terry, there's nothing you can do. Those are not your children. They never were.
Yeah, we're getting the same scene we saw from just a different perspective, and I think it's really, really, really effective here. I love this panel of Wanda saying, "Please, please stop this." I think it's just really excellently rendered.
Yes.
And even Terry down here saying, "Why the hell can you stay dead and buried?" is really great.
That panel of Terry pushing Spawn, and he's saying, "This is all down to you. We had a good life until you came back into it." And Terry's accusing him of being like, "Is this just a revenge plot? You can't stand that I made Wanda happier than you ever could?" And he says, "Well, you did it. You destroyed my life. I'm this close to losing my freaking mind." And here's where poor Cyan, who's had to watch all of this unfold, comes in as like, something's wrong with mommy. They walk into the room. Spawn charges up the stairs with Terry, or down the stairs with Terry close behind, just in time to see Wanda pull the trigger.
Now, but it doesn't go exactly the way you'd think somebody pulling the trigger that is pointed at of the gun that's pointed at their head is going to go.
No,
we get this incredible page with the blam, or incredible panel with the blam and Spawn calling out, to Wanda, and this is
such
awesome.
an emotional payoff. And the Man of Miracles stops time. Mom of Miracles, whatever you want to call them, stops time and says, "Don't be afraid. I know what she means to you," as Spawn is the only one left aware. And she says, "Without her, you would lose your fight." Spawn says, "What did you do?" And they say, "I've given you the chance to save her." And it says Al Simmons knows what happens when you shoot someone in the face. He's experienced it close up enough times. And as he's thinking of this, he reaches out and just plucks the bullet out of the air. Kind of like that scene from X-Men Days of Future Past with, long before that, obviously, and it's certainly not the only time.
Well, no, that was set in the 70s.
Right, so. Of course, yeah. Well, and that means it had to be filmed in the 70s.
Right.
Which is crazy they knew in advance to film that, to release it 40 years later.
Hey.
It's wild what you can learn. Terry says, "Give me the gun." And Wanda's like, "What happened?" And Terry's just like, "It's okay. You're all right now." And she is just losing her mind. Terry can't comfort her. Spawn, I love this panel of him lashing out with his chains flying around the room, and he says, "Do something. Do something to put this right, or I'm finished with you."
Part of the reason I love that panel is it is an impotent rage. It is he's lashing out at nothing. Like he can't. There's nothing he can do here.
Because if
And
he attacks the, mom of miracles, she's
nothing's gonna
nothing. It's
happen. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. She's
yeah.
so much more powerful than he is. He is at such a loss that this is a very subtle panel compared to what it could be, and I would be fine with it being an even bigger moment where he's like literally destroying things.
No, it's great. It matches
But
the
it
emotion
works
of the
really well
moment.
here.
And
Um,
I love
I
Man of
love.
Miracles,
Oh, I was also gonna say I just love
the close up
close
on
up
his
on the
eyes.
eyes too. It's just
Yeah,
really great.
Man of Miracles is saying to him, "It's strange, isn't it? The world is falling apart around you. The fate of billions hangs in the balance, but you'd throw it all away for this one person." Kind of summing up Al Simmons'
This
entire
is what it is.
existence. And
Yeah.
it gets that gritty, he gets that like squint in his eyes when he means fucking business, and he just says, "Damn right." Also want to say the texture on his costume is working a lot better here.
It
It's
is.
kind of a little more consistent in its portrayal. Doesn't look like scales so much as like it's kind of living and
Just
writhing.
texture and moving, and
Yeah.
I think the inking team has just figured it out. They figured out how to ink Philip's hand. It just took a few
It's
issues.
coming together, yeah. And so the Mother of Miracles kind of heeds Spawn's request, and with the power of creation, not only restores Wanda and Terry's home, but purges all of their minds, including Cyan's and Granny Blake's and everyone that ever knew the twins, of their existence, kind of giving them a reset, which, it's a little convenient, but also this is a character that is just explained they are entirely omnipotent except for breaking their own rules.
And there's still kind of a catch to it, despite Mother of Miracles kind of erasing those memories and setting things as normal as they possibly can be for those characters for a time. There's still something that Spawn must do, and
He has to fight for humanity.
yeah, he says to her, he's like, all right, use your magic wand, make it so Armageddon never happens. We don't have to do this. And she's like, no, if you want a perfect world, you have to fight for it. The disciples
Which
waiting for you.
I actually kind of appreciate that as a sentiment. I think that's a little more relevant to reality than a lot of superhero parables, especially right now, which is there is no one to wave a magic wand. Even the creator, if you believe in a creator to the utmost degree, with the absolute faith, there's no magic wand to be waved. If you want a better future, you have to fight for it. Even if that means fighting for yourself, for your own personal better future, taking care of your health, your mental health. Just, I like that sentiment better because it acknowledges, okay, there's an existential problem, but no one can just stop it. There's no take backs. There's no infinity stones. There's no traveling through time. There's just the work you put in to make things right from here on.
Yeah, in the aftermath of the Bad Bunny halftime show, which was great, there's been many posts shared. The only thing stronger than hate is love. And you know what? That's an extremely nice sentiment. But reposting that on Instagram is not changing anything.
No, well, I mean, and it's of course a callback to Martin Luther King Jr. saying, hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. And I think it's a platitude on some level, but I think in some ways a lot of people need platitudes. There are people whose, let's say, center left leaning politics are deeply informed by pop fiction parables. You always hear about like, this is Star Wars time, everyone. This is Harry Potter.
If nobody ever sends me a post about Andor ever again,
I was just talking about that with my roommate. Like, if I'm ever going to watch a Star Wars thing, it'd probably be that because I've heard only good things about it. But also, I'm not going to watch it. And I don't need to be told about it anymore. I don't care. And also, Star Wars isn't real. And also, maybe focus some of that energy on real world. But those people need the platitudes and they need something to rally around. The thing is, what I hope can be done is people can be pushed to take that idea, that slogan, into some level of action, into some level of even just for some of them recognition that the very religion they cling to tasks them to love their neighbors as they would
Yeah.
love themselves. And so I get it, but I agree that like if you want a better world, you have to fight for it. Feels like a better kind of parable. Again, it's a platitude, and it,
Sure.
but if we're talking about something that maybe is motivating to us or to me at least, I like that better than I like just like, oh guys, this is Thanos. Like, no, it's fucking not, dude. I
I
get it
mean,
that
at the end of
that's
the
how you
day,
relate to everything.
well, but also think that this is a true, like, even in a world of Thanos and of fucking
Right.
Darth Vader, yeah, you didn't hug Thanos to death.
No.
You didn't hug Darth Vader.
They
Well,
didn't
I
talk
guess
it out. I
weirdly,
mean,
the end of Darth Vader, he does become good again or
sure.
whatever. But like, you know,
Well, but it took like multiple
fighting. It
life
took
and
fighting.
death
Yeah.
battles.
Ben Kenobi died.
And a lot of people died.
Many Bothan spies
Many
died.
Bothan spies died.
To get us those plans.
Yeah, and so
Well, if they'd known it was a trap, but Amar Akbar didn't tell them. It's actually Dash Render's fault the Bothan spies died. My favorite Star Wars character.
Miss Dash Rendar. Shadows of the Empire, I would watch it if they adapted that. That would be sick.
You know who would play Dash though? Tough.
They'd probably make it fucking Chris Pratt or some shit.
No, he's too old.
Myself off a building.
Right now, I think it would be Glenn Powell. I know, but he's gotta have a beard.
He is the most boring person in the world.
Did you watch Hitman? It's okay.
I did not like it.
I thought it was okay. I
thought he was fine in it, but just
he's trying.
I guess. I just think he looks like if you let AI design a white man. Like if you just distilled the appearance of every cis white man into one guy, it's got to be Glenn Powell.
You know who would be a good Dash Rendar?
Timothy Chalamet.
No, he'd be a terrible Dash Rendar.
I
would love Timothy Chalamet to be like, I'm being in a Star Wars, and everybody's like, holy shit, what?
You know who it really would be is Ryan Gosling, and now he's Starfighter guy.
Ryan Gosling would be great. He would also be a good Kyle Katarn, though.
Also true.
He'd probably be better Kyle Katarn. No, you need somebody a little scuzzy, I think, to be Dash Rendar, who's also like, here's the thing about Dash Rendar. He's kind of the Dan from Street Fighter of Star Wars characters because he's just not as cool as any of the archetypes that he's based on. Right. He looks like if you put Cable into Star Wars, and unfortunately he's not as cool as Cable, and he's also not as cool as Han Solo. So,
man,
1998, crazy. Anyway,
yeah, getting back to Spawnography, the Mother of Miracles is like, well, Spawn, here, it's time for your final test. You're going to have to fight the disciple. Spawn's like, do I have to fight him in the fucking dead zone? He's just going to tear me apart. I don't have powers. Mother of Miracle is like, it'll be a fair fight. You'll have all your powers. Don't worry.
By the way, they don't need to fight in the dead zone. They could just fight not in the dead zone, and then she wouldn't have to like suspend his powers or suspend the dead zone.
I don't even think it's that. I think she's saying they won't fight in the dead zone. Or maybe they will, but that's where he's been hanging out.
I don't know. It's very weird.
That's where Spawn encountered him before, so maybe that's just where he's at. Either way, they won't have to fight in that way. But there's still something to address. We get the return of Bootsy. And here's where I feel like David Hine picked up on something. We talked about it in the last couple episodes. I feel like David Hine picked up on this in a really nice way where he says, he reminds Spawn of the Mother of Miracles reminds Spawn of Bobby and Bootsy. Especially Bootsy, the angel.
And his prophecy, essentially.
And his prophecy, who said, there will come a child, Al Simmons. You must look to the child. And we thought it was something to do with the vampire child or whatever.
Because we saw the kid with the Spawn logo on their tummy, and then we just never saw that kid again.
Right. So we're taking it back to just kind of smooth off the edges of that. And it turns out it's none other than Cyan. The Mother of Miracles kind of says some weird shit, which is you're very right. Cyan's very special. She's the child you were meant to have with Wanda. You've always felt that, haven't you? Which is like, geez.
Yeah, that's like a weird
sad.
predestination. I think that she doesn't mean it the way it comes off, but then the way it comes off because of who that character is comes off as like, this is literally what you missed out on.
Yeah. And so the mother of miracles tells Spawn, this is the child. You have an intrinsic connection. She carries the pacifier. You know, you know she's connected to you, but she thinks you're an angel, and you have to show her the truth before this can all come to pass.
I gotta say, I don't love this
Oh, I thought it was
scene.
pretty awesome,
I think
actually.
it's, I mean, I think it's very well rendered. I think the idea of it is cool. I don't know that I'm like in love with the execution of it.
I like it, and I'll tell you why, because I think it speaks to who Cyan has become, even as like a 10-year-old.
Okay.
Like the way that she has had to interact with the world, the things she's seen, the things that have happened to her. She was kidnapped by Clown. She
Yeah,
has
like
that
5 years
memory.
old.
Spawn kind of took it away, but like it's come back, you know what I mean? And so I think it speaks to the idea that kids can be resilient, and sometimes people have to count on each other. I don't know. It's not perfect,
Yeah.
but I like this moment where Spawn is like, "Hello, Cyan," and she's like, "I knew you'd come back." And she explains, "I know what's happening. It's Armageddon. Granny Blake told me about this." And Spawn's like, "Okay, you're right, and I'm gonna need your help. But before that, I have to show you who I really am. You think I'm an angel, but I'm not." He says, "Look at me, girl. What do you see?" And he
spews bugs.
yeah, he's like, "I am a monster." And she's holding on to the pacifier, and she's thinking, a test. He said this is a test. Whatever he looks like, this is the man her mother loved. They're only bugs. This is the man who watches over her. They're only bugs. And she screams out, "You're not a monster. You're Al Simmons." And the bugs start to recede. And he says, "You're a very brave girl." And she says, "Not really. What's to be afraid of? They're only bugs." And it's just like, she's seen so much fucking worse than bugs.
Yeah.
She's seen, she may not remember the stuff with the twins, but there's so much deeper than that she's been through just with Spawn,
That's true.
just with her parents, that like they're only bugs. She knows through experience this guy's not going to hurt her.
I think
It's a Gom Jabbar to talk about Doom. You
mm,
know, it is the moment of like, if you can survive this, you can survive anything, and also it'll prove your mettle that you are who you say you are. So it's kind of this moment that is like a passage from her childhood into the first steps of like understanding her role in her
I
life.
think that that's the thing that makes me wish she was a little bit older. Like,
Yeah, I mean, that's
because
fair.
I would also love for her to reckon with who Al Simmons is. And I know that that's not fair for me to say to a
I
book that
mean,
came
there's
out
a
20
little
years
bit of it.
ago.
There's a little bit of it in there where she's kind of saying like, this is someone who my mother loved. This is someone who helped me. I know who Al Simmons is now, because there's never been a big deep dive into the moment, but like there have been a few times where
Well,
she's
she doesn't
seen.
know that he was the world's sexiest man alive in
No, she doesn't
1987.
know that he was a world famous government assassin. She doesn't know that. But she knows that he was Wanda's first husband.
Yeah.
And she's now come to understand that this dark angel that watches over her was once Al Simmons, or is Al Simmons. She knows enough to know that. And I don't know. I think you're right that like ideally she'd be like 12 or 13 here to get the full on like comic reader POV character, whatever.
Well, and
But I
also
don't think
because I
it's
would like
too
for
young.
her to push him. Because the test thing is true, but it is also him preparing her in a way.
Well, we don't see what comes next, so we don't know what he's preparing her
Yeah.
for. I mean, if she's about to maybe see hell, like he's got to prepare her for that.
True.
And I know that she'll become scorched later on, right? Or not,
Misery.
sorry, misery. I'm sorry, misery, not scorched. She'll become misery later on.
She
So
does have
like
powers and stuff, yeah.
she goes through a lot, and I think that this was such a huge emotional moment for me with them, where it's like Cyan just kind of being like, okay. In a way, I actually think it's a relief for her as a character, because
Mm,
she's like, all these things I've believed and thought were the case, and that Granny Blake has told me, and that I didn't know if they were true. It's all true. I can actually be certain of this now. I know this is true. I can now know who this is. I can trust him on a level I couldn't trust him before. And thankfully, thank whatever, I can trust my own mind that these things I've seen and experienced even as a kid, they're real. They're real and they're a part of the world. And I think there is a level of relief that comes to people of all ages, but especially kids, when their beliefs about the world are confirmed on some level. Even when it's traumatic, there can be it can be comforting, but it can also simply be cathartic to sort of reconcile, like, okay, these things that have happened to me are part of the world. It's not necessarily about me. Even when you're part of that story, when something is happening to you or whatever, there's a level of acceptance that has to occur where you say to yourself, as a survivor of some kind of abuse, this wasn't about me and who I am.
right.
This is about someone else and who they are. And this happens in the world.
Yeah.
I am not the only person that has lived through this. And I
Do,
think there's a moment of that for Cyan here.
do you think that uh, do you think that non-superpowered kids in comics are some of the hardest characters to write?
I think so. I think that it is hard because you don't want your protagonist to come off as an asshole to his kids. I think
Right.
that's one of the smart things about the recent run of Ultimate Spider-Man, where Peter's family pretty much figured his kids learn it first,
Yeah.
and he's like, I can't. I'm fucking Spider-Man. Is what do you think? And it's like charming, and it makes him more likable than if there was a moment where his kids were like, you betrayed us.
Right. That
And
is
I
true.
think that's hard to thread the needle. I mean, even with characters like Batman and Robin, where they have this sort of adoptive father and son relationship, even they have to reckon with the fact that it's not idyllic, and it often makes Batman look like a dickhead,
Mm.
you know?
Interestingly, the character, the one of his kids that he seems the least like a dick is his own actual son, because his
Yeah.
son's a huge dick.
You know who's even bigger dick is Dick Grayson.
You think so?
Well, is in his name.
Oh, good point.
Gotta say, while we're talking about it, I really loved the early era of Grant Morrison's Batman and Robin, where it was Dick Grayson as
First 20
Batman,
issues or so.
where it was Dick Grayson as
Yeah.
Batman and Damian Wayne as Robin. Because I love the flip dynamic of Dick Grayson being kind of the like upbeat, almost happy go lucky, like ever the optimist Batman, and Damian being the like brooding, angry inside Robin. I
Well,
liked it.
and also Dick having to maintain that he's still Bruce
Yeah.
to the outside world. So, like, yes, day to day, still happy go lucky Dick Grayson, but when he talks to Gordon, and then Gordon's like, seems weird.
Something's different.
Something's wrong about this guy.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah, shout
Very
out
good.
Frank Whiteley and Grant Morrison for
Yeah.
one of the all-time
Early
great.
wreck.
Yeah, one of the all-time great. I have that in not absolute editions. Actually, I lent that out. I gotta get that back.
I also
I got the
I also
hardcovers.
like Peter Tomasi's early or actually the early New 52 when he was doing Batman and Robin, and it was Bruce and Damian.
So good.
So good. Their
That
relationship
and
was so good.
then there's the Robin miniseries with the giant bat monster.
Yes.
That is
It's like a parademon or whatever.
incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Super
Who did the
Sons.
art on that?
I know Patrick Gleason wrote it, right?
Patrick Gleason wrote and did the art on it.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I just think that that's gorgeous. I had a chance to buy a couple of those pages, and I just didn't have the money at the time.
Oh, I've had the chance to buy
And
so
I
many
felt
pages
so bad
I
because
desperately wanted.
I stopped and I talked to Patrick Gleason, and I was like, I love your work. I love this book. I reviewed it. I love it. and he was like, what do you want? I'll just hold on to it for you. And I was like, I can't make that promise. I make like $35,000 a year. I was
Right.
like, I really appreciate it. Listeners, if you're the coolest thing in the world that you can buy is original art.
Oh, it's so fun.
It truly is. Like, if you get the opportunity to save up your dollars and cents to just either get a commission or buy a page of something that you really love, it is something you'll cherish forever. I love collecting art. It is one of my favorite things in the world.
Almost 17 years ago, I started my like original art collection at a New York Comic-Con, and I've still got most of those pieces. I got a page by Sean Murphy from an unreleased Teen Titans comic that he drew.
Famously super
Unreleased
normal
at the time.
dude.
Yeah. At the time, he was super nice. He had just Newsarama, I think, even maybe, or someone had just done maybe it was CBR. I think it was Newsarama, had just done an interview with him showing like his art from like the limited series he was doing at the time that was just like crazy inks, where he was using his fingerprints for texture and
Wow.
like
I love his
can't
art.
deny that he's a fantastic artist. Anyway, it was a page from a Teen Titans thing where it was the Teen Titans fighting the Ravagers with like
awesome.
Or the Fatal Five or whatever it is. Fearsome Five. I can't fucking remember. They're enemies. It was like
they're bad guys.
Mammoth and Tar Pit and a bunch of bad guys, and it was like this fight scene page with Cyborg freezing a villain, and like it was awesome. I got it for $80.
Wow.
And then I sold it like 10 years later.
First piece of art I ever bought was $140. It was a page from issue 3 or issue 4 of, I still have it, of IDW's TMNT.
Oh, nice.
And
That's
it was
a great
the
piece.
end of that arc. I think it was issue 4. It could have been 5. It's the end of that arc because the beginning of that arc, Raphael is apart from the rest of the brothers.
Right.
So the whole arc is like the search for Raphael.
Yeah.
And he meets Casey Jones along the way. And so I bought the page where the brothers reunite Raphael with Splinter.
That's great.
Yeah. And then he gives them their bandanas.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Okay, so back in Spawn.
Anyway, yeah.
So Spawn is thinking to himself, look at her, she's so trusting. She didn't even ask why I did that to her. And he's trying to start to talk to her, and she says, look, it started. And they realize that thousands of people with those marks
floating into the air.
And
by the way, really great work.
Really good colors.
And the art team
the colors,
here. Holy shit.
So good.
The colors are incredible. The inks
this is what I've been waiting for in this arc.
Yeah, the inks of the shadows from the window.
So good.
I know that this sounds a little bit like we're trying to compliment a bagel, but like, I like, listeners, if you haven't read these issues, things were so inconsistent before, like page to page, scene to scene, that these 2 issues feel like a salve on all of that. This is just,
it's great.
Really incredible. This is like what I want Spawn to look like.
We get this beautiful moment with Granny Blake. The colors throughout this sequence are so good.
Mwah, chef's
Granny
kiss.
Blake is ready to meet God in heaven, and all the chosen people rise together. They get taken up, so they won't see all the bad stuff that's going to happen on Earth in the last days. They just go right in through the shining gates. And we get this vision of what Cyan and Granny Blake in particular expect to happen, which is the typical vision of heaven where everyone you've ever loved is there in the prime of their life, and Jesus and God are there with all their
like the
angels,
end of Avatar 3.
Okay, basking down their love and light upon you. You're in the light of God, and it's basically just a state of divine tenderness. But what happens is Cyan is saying when they arrive, they all get new bodies. Even really old people like Granny get to be young and pretty again. And she's saying, I bet Granny's there right now. I bet she's so happy. Well,
she is for a second.
Moment fucking rules. This is such a good moment to me.
Yeah.
She walks through the gates into a dark kind of cloudy void almost that doesn't seem like the heaven of her dreams at all. Behind her appears who else but God, aka Jakey, who says, "Hi, Granny." She doesn't remember him, and he says, "Who's that?" She says, "Who's that?" And he says, "You don't recognize your master's voice?" And she says, "You sound like a child." And he says, "So what? You're disappointed?" And she says, "No, it's just I'm still blind. I thought I'd be able to see." And he says, "No problem. I can fix that for you." Puts his hands over her eyes, and he says, "Make a wish and sing hallelujah." And she opens her eyes, and instead of the shining city of heaven, it is this horrible cyclopean citadel of like angel wings impaled with like
Well, and like
the
that's like a biblically accurate angel.
well,
Almost.
that is the spire, I think. So in the background, you see these like big weird tires, and then there in the foreground, as I was about to say, is this cross with the remains of all the forgotten ones,
Oh, that's what
basically
it
like
is. Yeah.
impaled all over it, with Zira standing there, and she says, "Oh my sweet lord, Granny Blake," and that's the end. And I just, God, that's such a perfect like Hellraiser moment. Like, if we're gonna play around with like divinity and God and heaven as like objects of terror rather than like comfort and worship, I'm all for it. And I think it's such a striking page. Once again, Philip Tan, the colors, everybody nail that page. That last issue there, oh man, okay, that was a great 1-2 punch to me. We'll get into final thoughts. That was a great 1-2 punch to me. What are you gonna say?
Frankly, I'm surprised because it didn't feel like we were going to get to one issue, let alone two, that would feel like a real 1-2 punch like this. I mean,
Exactly.
yeah, it obviously Hine and Tan's time on the book is going to be relatively short, so there's going to be these growing pains that, you know, I think that we probably we definitely did complain about Medina early on, and also we complained about Holguin a little bit early on as like, it's not as good as the last guy, not the same as the last guy. This isn't working the same. It is great that they hit their stride where they did, because these are two of the more important issues during their run that they're to this point, they're the two most important issues.
Right. They're
It is,
critical issues where a
yeah,
lot is revealed. I mean, these are summing up at this point what, over a decade of continuity basically.
yeah.
And
And also too, they are pretty seamlessly threading together a lot of that stuff as much as they can. Like, they're
right.
just going like they're painting with broad strokes, but in a way that like you're like, yep, great. Man of Miracles was all these guys. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it.
We
Got it. Got
don't
it.
need to get into the minutia of like, as Grant Morrison would say, kicking the tires of the Batmobile. We just go, okay, this is crazy cosmic shit. That first issue was such a setup of like just this ramping escalation of like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, oh fucking K, of like, these are the answers to everything, and it's bizarre. And then the next issue is just such a crushing emotional kind of aftermath of everything, where
An emotional payoff in a way that we haven't gotten out to have with like the main cast, quote unquote,
well,
with
it's been
Wanda or
building over these
Cyan.
series of smaller moments, these
Yeah.
catharses, where they're both trying to move on and their paths keep crossing, because it's in a way the Spider-Man curse. And I think this is something that's sort of endemic to maybe what Todd McFarlane has often thought about a superhero, given his run on Spider-Man, his classic run on Spider-Man that dealt so strongly with his secret identity.
Yeah.
I think there's a tenuous knife's edge there for some heroes, where if the forces of heaven and hell know that Spawn is going to be a sticky wicket for all of them, and they know who his loved ones are, as we've seen, they won't hesitate to be like, these earthly peons mean literally fucking nothing to us. We'll destroy them to get to you in a heartbeat.
I
And
have
so,
I have one sort of like thing I haven't been able to quite know prize away, which is our first interaction with God is as like a kindly old lady and does not have any of the sort of malevolence that we've seen in Jakey, and specifically says that Spawn is special and that she knows a thing about it. My only kind of no prize explanation there is that that was never God and that it was Man of Miracles.
It could be Man of Miracles. I think it was never God. There is a line in that second, or in one of those, in the second issue, I think, where, or maybe the first one, it doesn't matter, when Jakey gets back to heaven as God, and he's talking to everyone, and he explains that while he was gone for all these eons or whatever it's been, for all these millennia, it's been the seraphs watching over heaven. And so the seraphs, I think, are in general the like cadre of female warrior angels.
Okay,
and so I
so
think
that was
she
never
was
actually God.
I think that was never actually God. I think that was like the CEO of Angel Corp or whatever it was at that time, because the
Gotcha.
entire concept of angels has expanded and changed.
It's
and
changed
done-
so drastically over time.
It's in a way, it's really kind of, to me, expanded. They've just added so many more elements and like different avenues and branches that at this point, my no prize is that was like the elder seraph. That was
Got
like
it.
she was the one who had been in the throne the longest.
Break glass in case of no God. God in emergency situations only.
The thing that I can't square,
sure,
is that it seemed like Mammon impregnating Wanda with the twins. He visited her like as a fly or something.
So again, I push on.
That's why I was like, it almost would make more sense if Man of Miracles was like, I'm actually Mammon and I've been manipulating events in hell.
Yeah,
too.
but also if Man of Miracles basically manipulated Mammon into quote unquote doing that, or seeming like he did that to usher in Armageddon to help.
Yeah, maybe it's just a missing
kind
step that wasn't specifically covered. I don't know.
I also don't know that.
And I mean, Mammon was on the throne of heaven. We saw that. We're at a point where David Hine is like, we only have so many issues to get through this. We're going to have to just not explain or address every little thing. And I think that's actually fine. I think that's fine. I'd rather read a comic that has this kind of like energy and momentum and like visual flair that makes me engaged than one that addresses every little potential plot hole from 150 previous issues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just not possible to do that. And I think I've said it so many times. I think fans that look for that are always going to be disappointed, especially even a book like Spawn, where those first 100 issues, it was Todd and Greg, or, Todd and then Todd and Greg, and this relatively small team of other artists and stuff kind of contributing to that. I think that even in that situation, you get.
Well, I think you gloss over things in order to tell a good story,
right? That's what I was going to say. There's no possible way for everything to line up forever, and like even in like manga and like ongoing, especially manga and anime, there's this thought process among a lot of fans. It's like, well, it's only been these two guys and like their assistants doing it for like 10 years. Why can't comics do that? American comics. And it's like, well, for one, they're not necessarily designed to. They're different forms of the medium.
Yeah.
But also,
and we did it once.
It's not as consistent in manga and anime as people want it to be. The people whose manga lasts that long and has that many fans, they have people who are essentially story editors who will go back and be like, here's how you address this guy before. Like, they need that as someone else with an encyclopedic knowledge. And I don't think that's always even necessary for any artist. I'm willing to accept it if it feels good and is fun to read and feels like a part of the story.
I think that we've experienced this during our professional lives. Definitely post Gamergate, right? We got Comicsgate, and we got like a whole bunch of backlash against a bunch of shitty dudes who felt that women in comics were not qualified to edit the stories and
just
tell
for
the stories.
Totally misogynist, sexist, hateful reasons.
And the reality is that like, and they would come at their credentials like, you didn't even read comics until a few years ago. You wrote that in a fucking interview you did or whatever. And it's like, here's the thing. I am not interested in, and it's funny because we do a bit of a continuity podcast, right? What we're doing is we're talking about these books, we're talking about the continuity, but we're just really just trying to explore them for ourselves in a way that this is we're turning over rocks that haven't been turned over in quite a long time.
I think it's
right?
clear that we're not like continuity fetishists.
No, exactly.
It's just
And
something that is a natural part of going through the entire history of a book. Is talking to me, it's talking about when and how that continuity evolves, when and how the changes that will inform the story take place. And I think that is a lot more fun than going through and kind of going through every instance of like, was Mim on the fly, whatever, because it's like ultimately there's just not even enough space in these comics to fully address all of that.
well, and also, how does a creation that has been technically single-minded, right? A single person has been behind this thing. How does it evolve over time? How does it remain relevant? In a lot of ways, I kind of see us more as historians in general than I see us as critics. We are critical when we need to be and when we want to be, but I also get to be a fan, and I get to sort of just be like, we talk about all the time, like, what would I think about this if I was reading it at the time?
Right.
You
I mean,
know,
we're not
because
Siskel and Ebert in that way. You know what I mean? I think you have to be a fan of something like this to dig as deep into it as we have and are planning to continue doing. Like, if we hated this comic for 150 issues or 156
we
issues,
talked about it on some of those harder ones where we have more
there
of a
are
split
times where it's
opinion.
been like, oh,
You
this
know,
is tough to read for whatever reason. But I think you can only get through that if you do love it. And I think in that way we love the medium. And we've talked many times about how we see Spawn as in many ways a history of the medium. You know, you mentioned earlier how our opinions have evolved over the course of every new creator who comes onto Spawn over their tenure, one way or another. You know, we had our thoughts about how Greg Capullo fit in with Todd McFarlane, and of course by the end of it he's obviously the definitive Spawn artist. We've gone through that evolution with Philip Tam, with David Hine, with other books and other creators, Hellspawn, you know, Sam and Twitch. There have been so many different things that we've addressed where we've gone through that, like, that evolution of our love for it. And I think it even reflects a lot of the fan experience of the time that we see in some of the back matter when we had a lot of letters to go through and stuff for some of those early issues. A lot of fans are like, they'll, you know, you'll get the letters that are like, Greg Capullo is not as good as Todd. Why can't Todd come back and just do it?
which is so
And then
crazy.
like 8 issues later, it's like, Greg Capullo is the greatest artist who's ever been in comics, and I hope he never leaves Spawn.
Yeah.
You know, so it's one of those things where I think it's a lost art, and maybe an art that we've never quite mastered as a culture, of waiting and having a little patience for things to find their feet. There's so many pop culture examples. The Office is one that gets talked about a lot, where the first season of The American Office feels really flat. It doesn't have the characters. The second season and onward, they really build into a, whether you like The Office or hate it, I think it's I kind of love it at the same time as I also think it's sort of insipid capitalist propaganda. I like some of the characters and the jokes.
I mean,
Anyway,
it's
it
why
doesn't
I
matter.
work at a paper company.
Exactly. And so, and that's why I work in print media. Nope. But as it goes on, you learn to love the characters and you learn to love the journey of the story, the will they, won't they aspect of sitcoms in particular. And like, it's just something to hook into. And I think that there's so much impatience thanks to things like binge watching a lot of the time and just having access to everything ever, like at our fingertips, that I don't want to sound like a boomer being like, these kids want instant gratification. It's not even that. People want the answers handed to them. I mean, there's the whole thing where Netflix movies and shows will just repeat the plot out loud so that people who are looking at their phones
second screenwriting, where
Exactly.
you write things that people can hear so that if they didn't pay attention to seeing it, they'll not need to.
And I mean, I'm guilty of that myself sometimes,
Sure.
but also, I mean, there are times when I really want to pay attention to something. It but I think people want that handed to them. I don't do as much comic criticism or even criticism in general as I once did. I know that's true of you as well, just by the nature of the evolving nature of the industry and stuff.
For
A
sure.
lot of the comic criticism I see now is people who don't really get that the things that they're questioning are addressed in the comic and that they could close those gaps if they really wanted to. For example, us talking about the seraphim ruling heaven and just be like, okay, I guess that's
Sure.
how that could have worked. That's probably how that worked. Or
Yeah,
whatever it may be.
I think that one thing that I shout out to enemy of the pod, David Pepos.
We've brought him up a lot this episode,
We
but
have, but
he's a good comic writer.
For listeners who don't know, he picked me off of the other site pile. I started my own site, and he read a couple of my reviews he saw on Twitter, and that's how he recruited me. And he held my feet to the fire on every single thing I sent to him for
He took it
8
seriously.
years.
Every time he edited a lot of my writing, and he took it very seriously and held it to a high standard.
He's a great writer because he was a great editor, and he would sometimes push back on me on a metaphor I would use or a reference I would make, or he'd be like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and I'm like, it's fine, don't worry, I promise it's okay. And if it wasn't gonna ruin the piece, then he would back down.
Right.
But at the same time, if I wrote something and he was like, this isn't what you mean to write about this book, you need to write it again. You need to read it again. You need to take an hour and you need to write it again. And I'd be like, no, this is how I feel. And he'd be like,
just trust me.
Just trust me. Write it again. Just write it from scratch again. And I would do it, and he'd be like, there you go. And he would be like, you actually like that book more than you said you did. You just didn't like the book you read right before it. And I was like, fuck, man, how'd you know that?
Yeah.
And
because he knows us. I mean, we've been he's kind of our third musketeer outside of the podcast in a lot of ways. He's a best bud. And it's funny we talk about it like it was years ago. It's funny, I started on the Best Shots team, as it was called at the time, our review team, shortly after David, before he was the editor. And most of my time under doing reviews, he was the editor, and he did push us really hard. And I think it's, first off, incredible that we've all come to these different points in our lives where you're breaking in your first independent comic. I'm hard at work in the comic and movie minds more than anything. David has a solid writing career. I think also, though, that it shows that you need those voices in a collaborative environment where someone can look at it and have a vision. And it feels like that's really what makes Spawn, to tie it all back, work best, is when someone is like, no, I've got a vision. I'm doing the vision. Yeah. Here's how it's going to work. That's how it feels in these 2 issues with David Hine. It feels like, okay, no, I know what I need to do. I know how this is going to work. I know what I need to write. I don't need to get bogged down in answering every single question about it. I need to just move the story forward and set up these stakes that have been building for years so that we can finally escalate this in a way that isn't just saying, and then there's the next escalation. To finally build to a climax.
It feels like it is building to something that will be not an off ramp from what has happened, but instead an on ramp onto what the next thing is.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yes, right? Absolutely. Well, and I think that's what the best endings in serialized storytelling do, is they wrap up the story you've read, and then they give you a reason to come back for the next story, even if it's been 160 issues or 100 and whatever issues by the time we get there. First off, I think people like endings.
Yeah.
I think
I think we're learning that more and more and more.
I think also
actually.
people like it when stuff continues in a way that doesn't feel like it's cheapening the ending.
Well, I
Which
think
is
the
a
problem
very difficult needle to thread. One of the hardest.
I think the problem that we're seeing with current comics and a current comic book criticism sphere is that, like, first of all, I'll say this: everybody who's out there reviewing comics for fucking free,
Please keep doing it.
please
Please keep doing it. If you feel targeted by what I said, I don't care. Please keep doing it.
No.
It lives and dies by people who are just passionate and want to do it.
But like you're doing the yeoman's work here, and like you also are going to learn so much more about comics by exposing yourself to them and forcing yourself to write about them, that you're going to learn so many more words for the
Right.
way that you feel about the comics that you're reading. But I implore you also to read other critics, to figure out what you don't like about them,
Yeah.
like to figure out what you disagree with about somebody else's assessment of something that you liked. I still to this day will read critics that I like and ones that I don't like, on books that I like and on books that I don't like, to
Well,
figure out, like, where am I? Where's my taste? Am I wrong about this? Did I read this wrong? You
well, and
know?
I think an important part of forming that sort of point of view is recognizing when other people have interpretations that are different but interesting and valid and come from a place of good faith. Like I
Yeah.
mentioned Siskel and Ebert earlier. I've watched so many episodes of Siskel and Ebert, and like where they say, or even other critics, where they say something about a movie that I don't agree with, but that I can't argue with. You know
Sure.
what I
They
mean?
present it in a way that you're like,
And they say,
I see
this
how
is
you
how I
got
got
there.
here. This is what's it. I have an interesting way of talking about it. You may not agree or even get my point of view, but you understand that I have one and you get where I'm coming from, at least.
Yeah.
And I think that's so valuable, as you said, not even just as if you want to be a critic, but if you just want to be an informed consumer of media, getting the most you can out of the things you love. I think you'll be willing to open yourself to conversations that challenge your perceptions on it. Not in ways, it's never fun when someone shows up in like the fucking forum for the thing you love and is like, is the thing this is about actually garbage? There's no such thing as a productive conversation around that.
Yeah. And
But
the kind of last thing I'm sorry. You were going to
I
say.
was just going to say, but there's a lot of value in engaging with someone like we often do on this podcast, where we have fervent disagreements about things like whether Herbie deserves rights or a funeral or anything like that.
He
And
does.
we don't, no, he doesn't. And we can still move on and accept that those are things that we have opinions about.
Oh, I have facts about it. But also, furthermore, you'll never impress a professional in any medium, in any sphere, by